One of the big talking points in the world of darts at the moment is Gerwyn Price, always a controversial figure, Gerwyn Price, and he's been talking recently about a potential retirement from the sport. With me to talk about this, Glenn Durrant. Glenn, some interesting comments from Gerwyn Price recently. First of all, let's just talk about him as a person. He's emerged in a short space of time in darts, but we have seen in recent years that he started to get frustrated with the sport.
Yeah, he's a very interesting character, is Gerwyn Price, and someone I admire very much. So when you go into a player's area, you'd expect to see a Gerwyn Price and beating his chest. But he's actually very softly spoken, does his own thing, he's very driven, and can be very controversial in some of the things that he has to say and how he plays as well. And so it's no surprise that he's come out with this statement.
Yeah, let's just give you the full quote then from Gerwyn Price. He said in an interview with Online Darts, "I'll turn up and play in whatever events I'm in. If I'm not in them, I don't care. I've sort of built up a platform, so to speak, for me just to do what I want to do. If I fall outside the top 64 and finish darts tomorrow, I really don't care." Strong stuff.
Yeah, it's a dream for most players to be a professional player. And the reason I admire Steve Beaton, James Wade, Michael van Gerwen so much is that it is a pretty relentless circuit to do. And then you've got to look at the motivation factor as well. Gerwyn Price has looked after his money. He's bought businesses well, he's bought properties well. And when you have that fire and desire in your belly to go out and win a local open for 200 quid, it's a fantastic feeling to have. When you've got a few million in the bank and the rental income from his properties and his businesses paying it, that fire in the belly sort of goes a little bit and it's difficult then to practice. I can resonate with it slightly. The travelling is exhausting. You miss your family very much. But he also sort of contradicts it a little bit. I mean, retirement, and then talks about in 7 years' time. So I think it could be just one of those interviews where, it's been sensationalised a little bit. I'd be surprised if he goes out the top 64 for the next decade if he wants to. But I understand how difficult and how frustrated work-life balance is very difficult to juggle in darts.
He did say, just to give it a little bit more depth, that even though the retirement itself might not be imminent, unless he feels suddenly like he does want to retire, he said he would step away. But, for example, he might skip the Premier League next year. Is that something that you would have ever considered had you been invited?
Yeah, I mean, he said that last year and the year before as well. And he said that with a wry smile that he turns up also. The Premier League is, I mean, don't forget the year I played in it, I just wanted to play darts. I just couldn't believe I was there. But I also remember Gary Anderson walking in and saying, week 1, 17 weeks to go. I couldn't believe that because, give me more, give me more. But then the next year I started thinking, I don't really fancy this. I don't really want to leave my family, etc. And Gerwyn Price is a family man. And in that statement, in that interview, he did say, from now on it's going to be family first. I'm not so sure how the PDC will look at that as well because he is a global ambassador of the sport. Everybody knows Gerwyn Price, the PDC, giving him invites to the World Series, etc. They want him. The narrative coming out of the Gerwyn Price from the PDC is, how much I'm enjoying darts, etc. So, they'll have to deal with that. I'm a big thing about safeguarding as well. I made a statement 2 months ago that maybe Luke Littler could be a 5-year programme. And people were like, 5 years? He's going to break the record of Phil Taylor and win 16 years. But when that motivation's gone, when you've got a few million in the bank, things change. And these days, Chris, you can't just rely on your talent. You have to put the graft in. You have to put the work in because, the people who are coming through now are just getting better and better.
You mentioned Phil Taylor there. Price also mentioned, quite interestingly, Players' Championships, European Tours, maybe not for him at the moment. Maybe the next couple of years we'll see him do not many, if any, of those events. But he did say that Phil Taylor just handed his tour card in, would have been in a lot of the major tournaments for the year after he retired and basically waved goodbye to a big wad of cash. He said he won't do that, and he thinks he can actually keep his top 16 position by just playing in majors. Is the price right?
Yeah, the price is right. He's absolutely spot on because Gerwyn Price can rock up to any tournament right now. I mean, I think I tip him for 60% of the tournaments. He's that good. But, you know, you've still got to have that will to go and do that as well. And just as a side, in my Annus Horribilis, it was just a nightmare year for me where I was going to tournaments for the 10 grand first prize. And I knew deep down I wasn't going to win because the practice wasn't there. Phil Taylor made that decision because, you know, he'd invested well. He didn't need the money the year after. So it's a statement from Gerwyn Price where, you know, if the money's there, he'll take it.
And he's in a different position, isn't he, to either of those that you just described. He's not going through that real slump in form that you suffered towards the end of your time as a tour card holder. Phil Taylor had decided when he was going to walk away. It's a really different situation, which makes it so interesting, because why would somebody decide, even talk about retirement right at the top of the game?
I just sense that if you interview Gerwyn Price today, it might be a different story. I just think some days you get him in an interview and he'll come up with statements like that. But he has pulled out of Pro Tours, he has pulled out of European Tours, but I would say darts is the better game with Gerwyn Price in it.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the future does hold for him? Because, again, there is that volatility, like you said. Do you see a Ronnie O'Sullivan situation here where we might actually see him say, that's it, I'm done, but then 6 months later appear again and start playing again?
I just think he will pick and choose, but I'm not so sure the PDC will be. That's what they want from their top 8. They want to see, they know he sells tickets, they know his box office, they know he's got that X factor, they want to see him more. Is the power with the PDC where they want their players there, or can players look for that work-life balance and pick and choose? I don't see him going quietly. I still see him. I think he'll be around for the next decade.
Is there a frustration for people like you to watch Gerwyn Price saying things like this?
Not for me, because I'm very happy with whatever I did, whatever happened. But for young players coming through, it must be really frustrating, because everybody just wants to be a professional dart player. And then when you see one of the top dogs saying, well, I might go, I might not go, etc., etc., that'd be a tough one. So it's more the young players coming through seeing that.
Just tell us, Glenn, what kind of legacy you think Gerwyn Price has given to darts? If he did decide to retire tomorrow, what does he leave behind?
It's that wonderful story of the ex-rugby player who had that iconic game with Gary Anderson, and who has got a talent. Whenever he's on the TV, his box office, you can't help but take your eyes off him. He is a player who'll come out with statements like this. But he's done fantastically well. He's a world champion, and there's not much more in the sport, but I still think there's more to come from Gerwyn Price. So, you know, the legacy is there, but still more to come.
If Gerwyn Price did decide to retire tomorrow, would it be a mistake?
Absolutely. And I think he said in that interview as well, he may get bored quickly. So it might be good just to wind down a little bit, realise that he's got the best job in the world, and then come back fighting again.